Hi, Nikhil. Good to see you in Fab meeting. It's our pleasure to have you in the meeting.
Thanks for the joining. Also, my pleasure. Really, I think it's the first time I'm getting to at least have an interaction with all of you. Right until now, I know it has been a week. It has been Carolus and the team, but good to put some faces to names also. And yeah, look forward to a good discussion.
$1 million questions where most of the fans ask, will this club remain in Kerala, or will we move out, or will we shut after this season?
If your question, I have to answer it directly in terms of saying that, look, are we going to leave the club and the decision has been taken? No, that's not going to happen. And for as long as at least we try to do, we will try and readjust ourselves. But the idea always is to try and make sure that Kerala has a club that they will be proud to support in one which way or the other. Maybe not comparatively right now, but in other ways, yes.
Yeah, hi Nikhil. Firstly, thank you so much for Kerala Blasters. I think it was Kerala in general, the football landscape was fans were fragmented, and Kerala Blasters one club that unified everybody. So thank you so much for Kerala Blasters FC. Uh, I have a question in terms of a sporting project. I think it's fair to say that we've had a defined sporting project just in the past 5 or 6 years. And that's exactly when even Carlos came in, and that's when we've wanted to start building a philosophy. We started off well, at least in the second year, we went to the final. I was there in Goa, the heartbreak. Uh, Things started well. Fans were optimistic to an extent where they were expecting signings, and year on year, I feel like that kind of decreased a bit. And 5 years contextually now, I will leave out this season, but in general for the past 5 seasons in terms of creating a sporting plan, I feel contextually is a long time in Indian football. um, I feel like where the negativity is building or has been increased in the past few years is because fans are not able to visualize uh, how this project is going to get us to where we want to go. uh, I think if you look at the table over the years, I think we have just declined sportingly. So my question is towards how do you view this, taking away this season,
Yeah.
uh, because the general assumption of the fans is the sporting project hasn't delivered, and I feel like you
Right.
were pretty confident few years back that you also have made statements saying that if Blasters don't win trophy in 3 years, you would do certain things and stuff. So I just wanted to get your perspective of where we are right now and how do you visualize changing this aspect.
Right, Abhijit. So let's split it two ways. One is about the first intention when we came in and said, look, when Catalyst came in also, was to at least find a stable footing when we talk about sporting project. If you ask me my frank thoughts, I think when Kibu was the first season, that was a disaster, right? I don't think internally, while we were trying to put the steps in to say that, hey, look, we need to start investing in areas like the academy. We need to start also looking at how we can be sportingly competitive, but also being sportingly consistent, right? And defining what that consistency meant in the name of playoffs and effectively as a bare minimum. And then we try to push above beyond playoffs and then trying to be in finals, or trying to say, okay, look, in a period of 5 years, can we be in at least two finals, bare minimum, right? And out of that, we win a championship. So when we talk about a sporting project, it is never that every year we go in and we simply saying that, hey, title or not, and that has to be the measure of only measure of success, because there are hundreds of things that go into it. If you ask me, the year with Ivan, the first year, I think honestly speaking, we probably overachieved at some levels, right? We didn't expect that we would go from 12th place immediately to a final, right? I think the thought always was that over a 3-year period, if you're building step by step, you can you will get there. But having achieved what we did with Ivan, right now, if I were to tell you that a lot of the signings, right, and not just signings, but I think also when you ask that a lot of negativity stems from departures, right, we factor in that there has to be movements done in the team, because while you're trying to be sportingly consistent and competitive, you're also trying to realize we don't want to make the same mistakes from the previous 5 years of the club. And to factually tell you, in the previous 5 years of the club, the biggest dent was that for 1.5 years there was no investor for this club, right? And there's a lot of debt accumulated already. There's a lot of player signings made previous to when, let's say, a catalyst has come in, which requires a lot of cleanup. They have implications financially on what you're operating in terms of a budget, right? I'm not saying what we set aside in terms of signings or not, or why we decide to sell players, but just what you're inheriting. Then that has a play on what signings we would like to make and what departures we would like to make. But if you think that we have just made those departures, or in lieu of complete disregard of what you would like to do sportingly, that is wrong. Because ultimately all of us want to be competitive, right? Ultimately, if we are letting go today of a Sahal that comes, who's the sort of seen as a poster boy, for example, for KBFC in every aspect, if you think fans are going to be upset, you have to imagine what levels of discussion we have had, because the even bigger implication is what sponsors say, right? And if we are technically being questioned for thinking very commercially on only the transfer money, the bigger implication always is from what the sponsor will come question us and what we're likely to lose out. But the priority was always given to the coach and the sporting director in terms of why such a decision was taken. And if it was taken, it's taken with the belief that we would make a step forward on it. So that's an honest, reflection of it. And now with respect to how it's changing also, right, Abhijit, I think, look, in some ways we are adjusting to a new reality, but I think in terms of how we operate, right, if you look at some signs, all we've said that even 3-4 years ago, one part of the sporting project was to say, how can we have a more robust academy? Now, those don't yield results immediately, right? We had the benefit of players like Ayman Azhar, Vibins and all who have come through, but always the proof of success in the academy regard is when you have not just the first line coming out, but a second and third line that are able to create just as much of an impression on results and impact on the pitch, right? So whether it's happened or not, I don't think it has happened to the same degree as what it was in the first line of players that came out, but we are in the process. So how we perceive the future now, we're adjusting to a reality which we expected, which is why the word sustainable was coined out, right? Because ultimately now everyone is talking about the same thing, right? How it is impacting sporting performance today, I'll tell you, look, 3 games, 3 losses is not something we like, right? No one wants this, but you have to also try and see that, look, when everyone else has also gone to operate in a manner where they don't have as many foreigners, because that's an obvious comparison to say, hey, look, other teams don't have as many foreigners, what the hell are we doing? So we're just as critical, right? If the team is not fighting at the bare minimum, and we know that people are trying to rally together, fans are trying to rally together in what has been the most difficult time in a long time for the club also, we need to give them something to cheer for. If it is not results, I think people are still willing to be understanding, but if there is no fight, we know that's the last thing, because we don't like it either. So rest assured, and Careless is here, he will comment on it, but what happens outside on the pitch, right, also off the pitch in trainings right now, all focus is to just try and put out a team that is going to actually be worthy of, of demanding support for the fight that they show in a situation like where we are. So we're still, the effort is still there to try and see how we can be competitive. Now, what that translates to on the pitch is something we will continue to evaluate. I didn't expect 3 from 3 to be losses, quite honestly, right? If I'm being completely transparent, I don't think we expected 3 wins from 3 either. Just given that there are some teams that have had their full squads that have been training for far longer. But yeah, what I will tell you is that between myself, Careless, and Abik, and of course the rest of the team, that we will come out with a lot more fight. That at least should be the bare minimum that fans are expecting and should be proud of. So that's for this year. The next 4 years, I think the part that, despite everything that has happened, if I talk purely sporting and comment on it, the academy piece has been running consistently despite all the realities that we've been adjusting with, right? And if I had to quantify it, guys, probably you've heard of it already, probably you've seen it elsewhere already, but it is 1/10 of what it used to be just from a revenue, while all your expenditure is still locked to what it used to be, right? So we're adjusting to that without losing sight of what probably will continue to make us competitive in the future, which will be this academy piece where we start to get players, because now you see a lot of the teams with guys who are experienced, but it is the same supply of players, right? So when that starts to go away in 1-2 years, we want to have the best players coming out from our academy, and we'll see that. That is something I will tell you, relative assurance. Now, how we map out the other pieces into it, the kind of foreigners that we sign, the kind of other Indian players that we sign, how the market also changes, right? Even in this window, I'll tell you, there are some instances maybe we look at trying to even sign players for fees, for example. But if I have to do that, I also cannot be going and talking to my other players and saying, hey guys, you need to take a cut because of what has happened in the entire league is a fiasco. So we're trying to balance, we're trying to sign foreigners to still keep the team competitive so that relegation never happens, right? That's a bare that will never be, but since it has come up as some very from some sects of fans. I think that will not happen this year, right? And we need to put out a team that is at least showing something to fans that, hey, look, we're here, and even despite all the challenges that everyone is coming together.
So I think Nikhil more or less said the things which I agree. Very good expression is about this one additional attempt for long run in playoffs. This I very much agreed because there was 2 seasons where we lead the table after first half, and then for one or another reasons, second half happened what happened. Some maybe wrong decisions, some injuries, this that. So the margins between clubs are really tight, and sometimes few actions can decide the outcome for the rest of your season. I'll always, for example, example for you what I just told. I'll always remember last regular season match where it was decided to play Ivan Kaluzhny in the game which means nothing with 3 yellow cards, and he got fourth yellow card, and then he missed play of his game against BFC away. And then again we may be with different quality going to that game, and we avoid this walking off story in that case, and many other things in future would be also easier. So it was tight line many ways. I maybe this time, like I remember last meeting when I was here, I was saying many concrete things, which was mistakes. I maybe will not repeat myself, but it was a couple of costly situations where we must suffer later 1 or 2 seasons or even 3 seasons because of it. Because of some people which we count on them a lot and expect it a lot, but it become more negative than positive. So yeah, so this situation that at least one more attempt, it must be there. Absolutely, yes. And obviously very painful was season last year. Again, many of egos, a lot of quality actually we had last season, in my opinion. You agree or not agree? But a lot of egos, a lot of about me. Everyone thinks about himself, and in team sport it doesn't work like that. And then from management perspective, players management perspective, we didn't do maybe good enough to control the situation, and that's it was very disappointing season, not according to qualities we had. So this is how I see it. I'll shortly comment on. In the past, I spoke a lot already about this. I think even you, Abhijit, asked similar thing also in the past. And quite concretely, I told the main problems I saw in the past.
So, in your point of view, what is the root cause of the club's underperformance? Like fans accuse CEO Abhi Karolis for every below average signings or performance. So, like it's not depends on the current season. It's coming from the beginning of 2014 actually, which is not your responsibilities. But a pattern is there, like transferring highly performed players like Ian Hume from the 2014 from the players like Alvaro, Ogbeche, Jeeks, and Putti. I have, like Carolis already replied me why they have been like transferred, and you already said that. But like, is that because of the budget constraint or the salary offer coming from other clubs? So how can we look forward to it, and how can we retain the most important players to have that consistency going forward? One thing which I would like, as you said, in 2021, the first season of Ivan's season. So I know that we have improved the quality by bringing in Ivan Kalishny and all, but if we have retained the main players like Alvaro, Diaz and all, with inclusion of Ivan Kalishny, would have taken us to another final or maybe a silverware. So retaining important players, is that because of the budget, or whether we are not able to match salary offers from other clubs?
Okay.
And what is the solution for it?
It is not always as black and white in answering that question about whether it is budget or not. In some cases, yes, but those cases are mostly to do with some of these new players. When if someone is at, let's say, for example, a 50-60 lakhs, he comes out and says, no, I have to be paid 2.5 CR, for example, right? it is not going to fit within us, not just because we don't want to pay that money, but also because that one guy who comes in at 2.5 crores while the rest of the team is at an average of 50 to 1 CR, it creates a lot of other issues that frankly we felt it is better to have someone grouped together, and that is a call that we took all collectively, right, between us, between the coach, between the sporting staff. There are cases where if I don't want to because it'll probably really break hearts, but if I were to tell you some of these guys who've, we've sold, right? If I told you that before playing games against those teams that they've gone to have faked injuries. Now we will never come out and tell this. I will not name who it is, right? But these are situations that come up to us internally, right? So then if today you are operating the club, you know that there's a player who in the most important match, who you expect the most from, is expected to step up, but he's feigning an injury, which we obviously know to be fake. To my mind, such a player should never be there in the club because he doesn't give two shits about the badge, because you need to show up the most when in moments, in the tough games, in the tough matches. But there are players like that. There are, unfortunately, to a certain sector of people, they will know about it, but to the larger group, they only see the stardom that comes with these players. They only see the fandom that comes with these players. But that's part and parcel. So we are here to absorb that part of pressure, to absorb that part of criticism, no problem. But we've done it always with the intention of trying to at least be aligned to what our sort of wage structure is, which I would not say is being out competed in terms of what values we pay. We were paying good numbers, right? But then it is a question of also the selection of players. Some mistakes we obviously have made, but it's a combination. I think there have been 1-2 instances where we've been out competed on the contracts that that we've also offered extensively, but people have just gone heavy to the point where we said, look, let us step back. But a lot of these instances where we actually let go of players are absolutely in contention or in alignment with what the coach has wanted. So we're always doing it with the objective of uplifting the team, not to weaken the team. And it was always happening with the full buy-in, Ajay, right? So some aspects are budget constraints, right? The biggest budget constraint, I would say, or not budget constraint, but the shock we had to absorb was when the walkout happened. Because in addition to whatever loss is there, right, Ajay, to my mind, it is like to walk out of a game itself is wrong. We should never have done that, no matter what the situation is, because you have 22 minutes left to fight in that game, or 15 plus extra time. But after that is done, I cannot even begin to tell you the kind of impact that has had follow on in terms of what sponsors perceive. And once it starts with one, it goes on and on and on. So then when you're trying to say, hey, look, 1 season you've spent, 2 seasons you've tried to, going into the second season with Ivan, you've tried to elaborate on exits, but also give some good signings. The third season planning goes entirely for a toss one moment. But if you look at the signings still that have been made in that season, yes, you can say a Prabhusukan Gill was sold. We're obviously trying to see if, for example, if from Gill we were able to sell and generate some money. That money has not gone to us. That money has gone to a player like, because coach has said we want an extra striker in Pandita, for example. Otherwise, initially he was not part of the plan, but we took him. Or we go for another player, a foreigner that was signed that's in that particular season. So it's not to sell one and then we cash it out in any which way. It just comes back in and goes in into a different channel in towards the club. So a couple of instances, I think, where budget constraint was there, yes, but not from a point of us holding ourselves back. Just we were outrightly, outbid. And the second aspect is, like I said, look, it is not just that we decide to sell the player, so no one else has a say in it. So, these are all part and parcels of it. Jixin transfer money has gone effectively some part into building an academy, right? Which I think, as far as the club infrastructure is concerned now, if you tell Ivan also, if Ivan was on this call, I'm referring to Ivan because that is a period which we're referring to quite a bit. He would have said, no, it's okay to be, not as competitive on the pitch, but let the club have a firm foundation like a ground. So these things are complex in how they're discussed. We're trying to always plan budgets. If you look at the squads we've had, they'll be in the top half. So the question can be why we haven't delivered on the pitch despite all that. So that is something we have to put our hands up and say we failed. We've not done good enough, right? So, but yeah, I don't think it has ever been something as drastic as saying no, we were outrightly, just facing constraints, so we haven't spent. That's all.
Can I ask the counter questions?
Yeah, please, no problem.
Yeah. So from the fans' perspective. And I remember that you mentioned about the unhappy players like few years ago in a tweet. So are we still having that, and what remedies have you taken to keep out those unhappy players or make them happy with here to be with the Kerala Blasters? And you said like the fake injuries and all. So
Yeah.
how can we make sure they're happy here and be here with us? And why only we have this issue? Like this is what fans are asking. Like why
Yeah.
Kerala Blasters is only saying about the sustainability or the uncertainty, and why even if we are compared with Odisha, they are having two pros and 2 points in the table, so they are comparing that. So I'm just making that everything together. And also like why, like if we have a success formula, and you know that we have that success formula in the first season of Human, and why are we agreeing with the coach for changing that success formula? Because already we know that what's working within the team. So why we always go, like I know that there's importance for coaches point, but still we everyone knows that this is a success formula. He got it for the first season. So why we are changing that? And we are still having issues recover, like covering the DMF part. So Carolis have made a point like we will be having we have Freddy signed, but he's not up to the performance level we needed. And also it has been like few years now, and we still have not having any player from our academy who can cover that position. So what are the plans for the future in that position as well?
Yeah.
Can I
Careless, maybe.
comment a bit now? Yes.
Yeah.
So one first thing you told, why there are always someone unhappy. Uh, it's not only the case here. It's also case in Real Madrid. It's case everywhere. Players are humans. They're reacting to actions. They're reacting to public opinions. They're reacting to people. They're reacting to everything they can. Uh, this market of ISL is very young market. There are, in my knowledge, maximum 2 or 3 clubs who actually thinks in really professional level and sustainable way how to lead the football club and how to build football club from the basics, from basement. Uh, recently, I really spent a lot of time because we had time while sitting sitting at home and waiting ourselves. A lot of time analyzing some leagues, uh, and and my God, there this sustainability, it's not the word which we created, that like it's fun for us. This is how all modern football world functioning. This is, if you want to spend money, you need to earn money somewhere. And now how it's happened, obviously it's happened, player want to leave if someone giving him triple salary. And also to comment on this, like some limitations of budgets, it can be limitations or not, but there are also healthy common sense. What is actually normal? Like, uh, you can spend money, but is it actually like normal? And this market last 4 or 5 years was going to the level that it's nothing is normal. And because there was some new clubs, like I'll not mention names, but it was few clubs which was keep increasing every year, increasing. If I compare the moment when I came 5 years ago, it's probably 2.5 times these regular player salary increase. uh, so so we want to be healthy football club which functions normally. And it's not like we cannot spend, we can spend. We at the end, it depends. Some decisions was right where to spend, some decisions was wrong where to spend. This we have to admit. But we cannot just chase this, that yeah, at any cost we need to keep. It's, believe me, not many happy stories that someone doing something at any cost. Like, also you take examples of some ISL clubs who spend in last 4 years and not even reach this playoffs, who always finishing ninth or 10th. There are such clubs. So this is about to comment about unhappiness, that most of the times it's simply that they want to leave because of triple salary somewhere, which is criminal for quality, is criminal. uh, and and other reason, there are sometimes can be something personal things, challenge Recently, one player left because he was begging to leave. Now this season, because he simply thought he'll not make it, he'll not play. So okay, other club promising come to us, you surely will play. Okay, he come and cry every day, come and cry. I want to go, I want to go, I want to go. So this challenge perspective also sometimes a important factor. Then you mentioned about defensive midfielder. Yes, we had discussions about Freddy. At this moment, his situation as it is, he doing his best, but coach choosing other options. And yes, last season it probably was something what can be done in different way. We expected also Koyev to cover this position when needed and be other option of central defender. So, and this season, all these signings, this season we cannot count like it's normal. Sometimes we choose some ways and see how we can cover. But last season, yes, I probably it was something what we could do. And to comment why no one coming from academy, I think at this moment during last 4 or 5 years, we are the club who produced most players in entire ISL clubs. We produce the most players for ISL and I League. So that's a fact. And why specific position didn't work? Okay, again, we had some hopes in Azar. Didn't happen. He's this exactly this kind of position player. So you cannot simply think, okay, now I'll create this. It depends what boys you have, how they're doing, how they're developing, and all these kind of things. So yeah, I hope we have one good boy in under 18s now, exactly this profile. And obviously there are always option to go absolutely standard way, in foreign balance, just keep it in the middle, two defenders, one 6, 1 10, and two striker. So this is also probably what in future makes sense to do, depending on options, of course.
And Ajay, sorry, one question you asked as to why our players always, it is that they sometimes, okay, maybe we coined the term unhappy, but sometimes it's also pressure. And I'll give you again one more example, that there is an angle to it where fans have a lot more demands which they're able to voice a lot more clearly here than anywhere else, which is why any player who's coming here, even if he's the best player, comes and feels the heat. So that is also reasons why they come to us, and they just simply think, no. And guys who are very experienced also that we sign, who start to feel the shivers when they first time in front of 25,000 people, because you can cut it out in the Northeast and come here, no problem. But the same guys also who don't perform here also go out and tend to do well, is something we assume, right? But the big factor also there is because no one is used to dealing with this kind of pressure, where if you put one bad pass, you come, the next day and you go to social media and you're getting absolutely deranged. But some cases are like Carly said, that they will come and cry to us every day because they simply don't believe they want competition. This is also as to why only us sometimes these players aren't really doing well or not, because they simply cannot live up to the pressure of the expectation. So that's another perspective on it.
So I just wanted to ask two questions. So clearly from a fan perspective, just like Ajay said, when it comes to a fan who keeps supporting this club over and over again, they it's not about demand. They want mentality from the players on the pitch. They want to see that. They want to see result. Okay, even if there isn't result, they want to see that kind of energy. They want to see what fans put out for them. They want to see that back. They just want to see that even if results are not there, fans will keep supporting. But that kind of mentality and attitude is absent. Completely absent. It has been there has been situations and seasons where we have seen that in especially we talked about the events first season. So, but when you perform like that, the next season or the 2 seasons or 3 seasons after that, it's completely gone. It reignites again. It completely gone. Why it happens? Why it happens again and again? And sorry, one more question. Why do you think there has been a disintegration or separation in terms of fans, because there has been massive fall in the following for Kerala Blasters in terms of fans' perspective. So, why do you think, from a club's perspective, this disintegration or separation happened for the fans towards in terms of the love towards the club or passion towards the club? How can you point?
Okay, I'll answer first part. Obviously to begin with, let me again. You said the first season we showed a lot of fight, right? Exemplified by Ivan. Okay. In the second season, to my mind, if we are saying as fans we are questioning the mentality, then why we are celebrating a walkout? To my mind, I think sometimes also this question of mentality is misplaced, right, Rajan? I think somewhere where because someone has taken this team so far and we are extensively, thankful for it. But I think the questions also sometimes what is happening on the pitch at the end of the day, right? We do our best to put the best tools on the ground, right? But now if that tool is being utilized in a certain manner or is not being utilized in a certain manner, or that mentality is not matching up to the expectation of the fans, that is something we are also trying to figure out. And one reason will go into the second question that you asked, because I think also there is a overall change in the perspective of how fans also view, right? And the kind of nature, I think when you have a newer generation that is coming in, that is a lot more impatient in general, I would say, right? I think we have the benefit, at least I have the benefit only of conversations from what used to the Indian football scenario used to be like. I think it was a lot of people who had a nostalgic connection to the to Kerala football, not the club, obviously to Kerala football. They felt that a lot of fragmented pieces were coming back and being put into one place. And as a result, it was something about reviving that little bit of legacy that Kerala football had, and you're trying to build on it. That I think has fast tracked into also a mix of new generation, which I don't think disintegration today, Rajin, is a way to for me to at least describe it. I think it is just different set of expectations from different sets of fans, right? Till date, there are a good group of people probably who aren't as active on a social media, who voice their appreciation for what has been happening because they've seen a lot more of the struggles also of years past. But the current set of younger fans today, to them, we cannot also fault them for being impatient because they were never in that zone, right? So they were never, they've never seen what can happen in a moment of you trying to be overly ambitious or stretching beyond your means. And in saying that, I'll also, sorry, I'm just digressing, but one question Ajay asked that, how other teams are able to do. So we are not JSWs and we are not all of this, but to us, it is a family pool of money that has come in. The experience that we've had in building sports has started in 2005, where we've created champions like PV Sindhu, Saina Nehwal, etc. And that took 12 years for the first champion to come. But it happened in a same manner that we're trying to establish at the very grassroots level, right? The fundamental mismatch here again is that fans come in that this club has X amount of fans, so it should be minimum aiming for title, and that's how the spend has to be. That's how the owners have to be rich. That's why, etc. I'm not saying it is wrong at all. It is a certain set of people who believe that, and they're entitled to believe that way. But we can only do what is in our control. And as far as mentality is concerned, Rajan, I can tell you, look, if there is even a little bit of read up on what the context, I'm not even saying me, of my father, right? In terms of what has actually been happening, what some of the history is, you will know that the question about being a fighter is not something, or to say that mentality is weak, that we are not fighters, is the last thing you will ever say. Right now, again, how we can try to bring this out in the players effectively is, if I could do this myself and coach them, I would. If Carlos could do them, he would. But fundamentally, we want the coach who's there with the players, who has to go out in the stadium, has to be able to do it, right? But since you've collectively brought it up between 2-3 of you, we are trying to address it in our way right now, especially when we are going 3 games, 3 losses. Right now is the time to show that character, and everything I'm saying has to be reflected on the field. Right? So we'll try our best. I joke with Carlos that, hey, fuck, sometimes I wish you put me on the pitch, just because even if I cannot play, I know 90 minutes I would go and run and kick and do whatever it is to show that at least I want to play for the badge. Right? That's the bare minimum that has to be there. I think we expect that first and foremost, even before the fans, from our players. So the guys who we've gone out, trust me, are the guys who have gotten money and just said, no, fuck it, we do not do it. So the guys who are here, who unfortunately also get criticized a lot, guys like Sandeep, guys like Danish, in moments like this, they are the characters on the pitch right now, despite everything going on, we've been telling Eben, being like, don't worry, you can, we will eat the shit, but we will protect you no matter what. So you see some part of it, we see a different part of it. We're trying to just make sure it is coming out. And we'll come back to the discussion about how we achieve a title, because this is a transition year and the questions you have are valid as to why KBFC should be any less. But yeah, I think to connect also a few of the questions, all we're trying to say is that always the bare minimum expectation was to be in playoffs, right? We wanted to push further. We thought we could do it. And then, the real jump should have been when Ivan moved on and we gotten a new coach. But I think that is again our fault that, we had, we couldn't do that. We didn't make the right choice, so we couldn't do it. So that's the overview. But yeah, where mentality is something from our side, at least, it is never something about trying to say where your mid-table mentality is bullshit from our side. It's never the case, right? We cannot go in thinking we just want to go and finish sixth in the table after spending so much as we have. So that's one. And disintegration also, right? I think, Rajin, it's a good question, very good question, because we're trying to understand how also it is, but somehow fundamentally all those answers funnel down, at least for the newer generation of fans. They just want signings and results, right? So it cannot be that way, unfortunately, right? Even we wish we can have results, but tomorrow spending and doing it. But yeah, we'll try and address it. I think it takes time. There is some part of education that has to happen both ways, in for us to understand that, look, they have to be willing to know what can happen, because I will tell you, there will be a situation the next 2-3 years, depending on how this current ecosystem evolves, where you will have teams that have spent a lot of money suddenly walk away from this league because there is no room to grow, right? Where do you go after this? What do you do? So then what is the incentive for people who are coming in to put money if you're even today not even able to say that, hey, I can send my team to Asia, my players are not even getting the platform, etc., etc. So in that context.
Hi, Nikhil.
Yeah.
Just two questions. One, what is your expectation from coach and fans in this season, particularly this particular season? The second question is, Kerala Blasters always seem to have a different approach in the ISL, always bringing in new coaches every time, and new players also, foreign signings also from new players to the ISL. While other clubs always try to, or many of the times, bring coaches have experience in the ISL and foreign players with experience in ISL. So Blasters have a different approach. What is the thought process, or what is your thought process on keep doing this? So these are the two questions that I have.
Yeah, sure. I'll take second question first, because at least since let's say I've been there in the last 5 years, there's only a couple of coaches probably we've thought of to try and bring in, right? Even you have to understand, in 5 years, if I leave aside this year, I'm talking about, right? Because the decision for this year's coach also was taken before the Super Cup in 2025. We looked at Manolo, right? And we've looked at Lobera at 2 separate occasions. And I'm being very open, right, guys, because it's an open forum. And Lobera, actually, in the context of Sergio, it happened twice on 2 separate occasions. One where there was a heavy transfer fee also involved, which we were ready to go, but it was a circumstance where the other team wasn't willing to let him go, so we couldn't. And the first instance was actually post the walkout also, because we also didn't know how it would unravel in terms of the overall situation with the federation, etc. Right? At that point, probably he was more open, but then we also fundamentally realized that, okay, look, let us wait it out, because we also couldn't commit. And then, at that point, I think that is when he moved to Odisha, and Abhik was with Odisha. So he always says they also knew that if he was ready to come to us, but it was between Ivan and, and this, and 2 years with Ivan versus, a year with Sergio. So that was a decision that happened. It was also AIFF, in terms of the call out of whatever the walkout was, it was all up in the air. Manolo simply had, previously a commitment given to Goa. So that is the reason we couldn't. To my mind, I think beyond this, we looked at Des Buckingham, but I think Des's profile also is, gone to a different level once he moved to Oxford, for example. I think there was a moment before also, David, that we were extensively talking, but yeah, you go asking millions and it's not possible, at least in this league structure. So I don't think it is for lack of wanting an ISL experienced coach. I think we would have really liked to, and we've tried on multiple occasions, but just I think situationally it has not been, it has not worked out for us. And you mentioned players. I think that piece better Carlos actually takes. Carlos, you want to quickly answer that on why new players versus here?
Yeah, so not specifically, we're not against players who playing in ISL. It's never like that. from other side, usually these guys who already in the league, it's much different of challenge to get them. And same time, when you in foreign market, when you have such a wide market, there are always possible to find this kind of quality abroad. Obviously there are a risk of adjustment in the country, like for example was the case with Koyev last year. That's true. From other hand, you also can get something else, like we did with many others, like Luna Diaz, Alvaro, Diamantakos, Kalužny, and so on. So I would not put much of attention and difference in this. It's they're from the league or not from the league. If team have time to prepare, and he has time to adjust, 9 cases of 10 it will be fine, in my opinion.
Yeah, the expectation from coach for this season. Yeah, look, if
Yeah.
it was before the season, Zaran, I think to tell him that no, we have to go this year. Realistically speaking, to tell him that hey, look, we expect a championship from you is not what was communicated. Especially because he himself also, just for everyone's knowledge here, also the first person to actually try and be cognizant and understanding of what the situation realities are. I think he was first, right? And it was more to say that look, we need to go out and put out a case where we feel we can respect ourselves, and nowhere in that conversation relegation has come up that we need to avoid it, etc. Just from a point of clearing that also, because we never assumed or thought in our wildest dreams that we'll be anywhere fighting for to save ourselves from that. It looks like that right now, but I don't think that will be the case come the end of the season, because yes, true it is, you mentioned Odisha has taken 2 points from 2 games, etc. But let us also see there's still 10 games left, which is plenty of time. We've had shorter seasons where more things have turned around in a matter of 3, 4, 5 games. So that's one. But yeah, the expectation at least, Seren, is to say that look, let us put out a team that reflects the fight, right? Because this year has been about a collective fight to put Indian football back on, and that is the bare minimum that has to be there. If there is no quantified standings or things like that we even spoke about, because to say that to him with 14 days of preseason, is also, he will simply say, what the fuck you say to us. So in that context.
Other factor, there are smaller mistakes. I cannot say mistakes or error, whatever it is. So
No, it's
for
okay,
an
you can say.
example, see, the volunteer staff ka matlab like volunteers who are there in gates or someone, they behave very rudely, and lot of incidents are there. And for latest, it is happened in the last match between me and Serin. See, these sort of things has happened. These sort of things, trigger the negativity more, and the distance between what you say fans and club goes wide. So what I suggest is that if we can correct these sort of smaller things,
Small things.
so at least we can make it little closer. And the other question is, if you see, lot of people are telling about the financials of club. We are getting profits, we are getting a lot of sponsors, and all those stuff. See, my suggestion is that why can't we be more transparent, where we can upload our balance sheet in our website? Though it is available, if we pay some money for website, it is available. But if we can make it as something in our website balance sheet, I think that can be, to an extent, decreases this negativity.
No, we'll try to action both points, Somu. Good suggestions.
Do we have any plans for new investments? And if like Citigroup can invest in like a 6 club like Mumbai, why are we not getting a good investor? That's one thing. Second thing is like not questioning your motive, but there are questions from the fans asking your motive to run this club. Like, where is it like making you happy for running a football club, or making champions for Indian football team, and just pure love for football, or love for the state which you selected? So, or is it a business? So these are the questions we can see from fans revolving around and around. So I just want to make a clarification from your side, so directly,
Yeah.
so that it's like a proper answer for everyone.
No, so So, okay, look, Ajay, it is a combination of all, right? I'll tell you where the discussion when it started, right? Internally, because again, actually, the decision itself also predates me, to be honest. But the fundamental thought was always, I'll start why we went into badminton, because cricket, there is more than enough happening in India. Everyone knows. So how can we, if we're people who are passionate about sports to begin with, and then the layer after that is, passionate about football, passionate about kabaddi also, right? And it's not like what we're doing here is very different to what we're doing there. We take a lot of flack there also for things that we're trying to develop, but at least the thought process is that we want to try and create champions. That is the first thought with which we got into. Now, the ecosystem, the nature, the day-to-day of football operates very differently, obviously, right? In terms of fans, the fact that we have fans here is very different to other, things like badminton, etc. But it is a combination of everything you really mentioned. It is a passion for football. Then you want to you want to be in a place which is passionate. You want to create champions that are there, not just now, but very true champions, right? Native to India. And the ultimate dream, which we've spoken about extensively internally, is that the first player who truly plays outside India, in Europe, right, in a recognized league, has to be from Kerala Blasters. So I think that's something which has always sort of continued to drive us in terms of what we've tried to do. And we, even with investments, right now, some part of it I answered, I think, just before you joined. We've never said no to any investor coming on board. There are enough people, names who are probably the biggest also in the state, that have come, that have simply said, and we've said, look, if you want anything between 20 to 100%, please, we will be the last people to stop it. We will take a loss and we will also walk out, no problem. But for as long as you also understand that you cannot just say that, hey, I want to do this, and then do it for 2-3 years, and then what is the plan? And then they look at what actual money is that goes into keeping the club alive, right? In terms of just the losses that you have to fund beyond what you have, revenues, etc., etc. And they go away. People have gone away, right? So it's not as simple as to say why City Group has not come to us. Look, there are hundreds of angles. There's a Reliance angle to City Football Group. All of us know they came to us first, right? It should have happened for all practical purposes, but there are layers there which, unfortunately, are even beyond our control. Beyond that, guys like Dortmund, guys, any of these clubs that have come, they say, pay us 20 crores and, we'll give you a rights for what? I want you to pay you 20 crores. I don't want to pay, because you want to come and you want to market yourself with us, and that's about it. So, some of these discussions you had up until last year, there are a couple of clubs in Europe. Everything is centered around, look, we will do it if you are ready to accept 5 of our academy boys, not under 20, not just for 2 months, 1 month, 5 academy boys who are, under 13, keep them for 8 years. Let us really try and answer the question which everyone says, hey, look, 10 years, the difference between an Indian guy who's as talented at the age of 16 versus a European is so big, but at the age of 10, it is very limited. So let us send a 10-year-old guy there and let's see how he does, and a group of 20 boys. So those are the discussions that are centered around, which ultimately feed into the same aspiration that the first player outside of Europe should be from Kerala. And our belief is that when we are at a point with our academy investments where those things are happening, if you have the best boys ready to at least go and make a showing of themselves outside India, those will be the best boys in India, and that will make KBFC also competitive, right? To compete, whether you say title, whether you say aspirations to play in Asia, etc., all of that. So it starts from that overarching thought and feeds down. So that's where we are, and we've never said no to investments, Ajay. No one, I think anyone who thinks that we are just holding on to this is wrong. If we don't treat it like a business and we treat it like pure passion, I think in 2 years we'll be out of the club will be out. So we have to at least try and institutionalize it like any other business would, right? But any other business running on a loss of 20 CR for more than 1 year will also shut down. So that's where the passion comes in, to try and say that, look, it means something to us, but also we've realized incrementally, not from the first year, but over a period of a few years also, what it has meant to Kerala, what it meant to connect the old generation, what we can try and create for the next generation also. So these are thoughts that we look at from a more philosophical point of view as to what we can try and do. But sorry, we're little short on time, but I'll tell you, right, even the ventures which we are criticized for to be overly commercial, like House of KBFC. Now, if I told you that this year, actually in the initial budget, we are trying to reach a point where House of KBFC, even which for the purpose it was started, was purely commercial to put money back into the club. We were trying to make it such that what we are trying to receive there is able to bring back the women's team, actually. Now, you can question what the hell we're doing selling chips all the time. But from our point of view, we're always trying to do it, and we've stuck true, right? If we are able to generate money from it, first, ideally, people can say, "Arey, but why not men's team?" That will be the next question that comes up. But the thought was, look, we'll link it to the women's team. Both can then at least run on a model independent of the men's team while we continue. But if it increases and it grows, then it is a bigger platform than even fans coming into the stadium to generate money, right? Because you don't have to spend 399 rupees. A fan then only has to spend 10 rupees for a product that they anyways will buy. And we are not taking it away and running away. We're just coming and putting it into an area where we can invest. So thoughts are there. Of course, this is a big step back for us also with what has just happened in terms of league fiasco. But let us see how it evolves. We're also hopeful that there is some more structure to it going. It cannot be hodgepodge, but yeah.